Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Georges River Local Planning Panel for Thursday, the 4th of April 2024. My name is Stephen Alchin and I'm the chair of this panel. The panel meeting is being streamed from the Georges River Council offices in McMahon Street in Hurstville. The panel members who make up the panel today are Judy Clark on my immediate left, who's an expert panel member, Ian Armstrong on my right, another expert panel member, and Jenny Simpson, who's the community representative on the panel. We're the panel who have been appointed by the Minister for Planning to determine specified development applications, including those applications that are on the agenda today, in accordance with the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. The Georges River Local Planning Panel acknowledges the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. We pay our respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. I'm required to advise you that under the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, this meeting of the panel is being live streamed and will be made available on Council's website. In accordance with revised meeting protocols, interested parties wishing to make representations to the panel were requested to register a summary of their interests. 6 registrations were received and forwarded to the panel. The panel has reviewed those registrations and advised the council officers that they wish to hear oral submissions from the following persons, who will be called during the course of the meeting in order of the items that are published on council's website. There are 4 people who want to address the panel about the development application at Vista Street in Sans Souci. First one is actually a couple, Basil and Jeanette Berrigan, Mark Raymundo, Paul Gentile and Craig Turner. And then there are 2 people who would like to address the panel about the development application at 117 Kyle Bay. They are Andrew Collodian and Robert Chapman Malik. As required by the Local Planning Panel Code of Conduct, panel members are required to disclose any conflicts of interest in respect of any matter that's on the agenda for the panel meeting today. The relevant forms, as prescribed by the New South Wales Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure, have been completed and are tabled for council to be included in the online minutes of the meeting. No panel member has disclosed any conflict of interest in any matter on today's agenda. The panel has received completed assessment reports from council staff for the 2 development applications. The panel has inspected the sites and nearby locality on those matters that are on the agenda today. We'll deal with each application in order as published on council's website, that is DA 2023/0282, the 53A Vista Street, Sans Souci. That DA is for alterations and additions to an existing jetty, mooring piles, a ramp, pontoon, and the construction of a boat shed and mooring pen. The second DA is actually modification of a previous consent, modification number 2022-0186 for 117 Kyle Bay. That itself is a modification of a DA number 2000/461, which was relating to demolition of existing dwelling house and the construction of a new dwelling house, a swimming pool and pool fence, and front fence rather. This modification is seeking the reconfiguration of floor plates, changes to floor levels, changes to openings and awnings, landscaping amendments, the inclusion of a lift and modifying some conditions of consent. As we progress through the matters on the agenda, only those persons who've registered to speak will verbally be able to make representations to the panel. Each person who has registered to speak is requested to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. I'd ask those persons that are invited to speak to the panel via Teams that they speak clearly and at a volume that will project into the speakers so that those viewing the live streaming can hear clearly what is being said. To manage the live streaming process, all speakers should leave their camera and microphone turned off until their turn to speak is called. At this time, I should remind all speakers that any defamatory, discriminatory or offensive language used may result in the author being exposed to liability for which council and the panel take no responsibility. Once we've heard all the oral submissions on a particular application, we'll move on to the next application. Members of the public are free to continue to listen to the broadcast. The determination of the application will be made in closed session, which is not live streamed or recorded. The determination will be available on Council's website once it's been confirmed by the panel, and that usually occurs within 2 to 3 days of the meeting being held. That's the end of my introduction. I'll now call the first item and the first speakers who would like to address the panel about the DA at 53A 50 Vista Street, rather, San Susi. Basil and Jeanette Berrigan, are you in the room?
Jeanette, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it to that, so just be there.
No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you very much. Please have a seat and settle down, and then let us know your thoughts. The red button.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the panel for their time today and for allowing the opportunity to speak. Firstly, with the DA 53A Vista Street, I've got some concerns over the calculation of the FSR, the floor space ratio, in that it was never drawn in the plans. There's no calculation, and I'm confused whether there's been any assessment of it, and there's nothing there to show that it has been in what was available to view or in the notification. Secondly, on page 52 of the council report, it shows a slipway. The slipway said existing, but my understanding is that the slipway that was repaired about 12, 18 months ago and has been extended past the sand to in front of where the proposed boat shed is. There's never been any notification of the extension of the slipway, and on the proposed plans it said it's existing, but when the neighbour on the other side of the property put in for a slipway, we were notified by the Crown Lands Department and given the opportunity to make a comment, but that hasn't happened. Well, I don't know if there has been approval for the slipway, I guess I'm trying to express. So it says it's existing, but I don't think it's ever been approved. And if I could get that clarified, I've spoken to the compliance officer of the council. They were confused. They weren't able to give me an answer, and they said that it would be addressed in the DA, but that hasn't happened. Also, the setback on the side of the boundary at one point should remain from the boat shed to comply with the council's controls. It's important that the council's controls are adhered to, because if they're not, then anybody will be able to construct anything they want within their areas. And also, it's a question why the slipway are required to store kayak and to the boat shed with kayaks. Further, that the boat shed has more of a layout like a cabana, given the window placement. So the plans that are shown at the moment show that they want an extension on the existing slipway, but I don't believe that half that slipway has been approved, is unauthorised, and we need that to get clarified if possible. The further concern is that we object to any relocation or realignment of the slipway rail, which would encroach on the prolongation of the boundary as a consequence of the 1.5 metre setback. And in closing, currently what's on that northern boundary, there's currently a 6.5 metre screen or hedge of bamboo, and then with a solid 7 metre by 3 metre concrete brick wall, which would obscure more. And these bamboo trees as well, in the sun and at the height they're growing, the grass behind them is not going to be able to grow and cause more moss to grow and sunlight to be seen. And then with the boat shed wall and plus the railing with the boat in front of it, I think the applicant has 2 boats there and a jet ski at the moment. We're both, myself and the neighbour on the other side, we only have one boat and we have a mooring. Maybe a consideration should be given to mooring instead of building more infrastructure to house all these water activities. Thank you very much. That's all I've got to say at the moment. So thank you very much for your time, panel. So,
Apologies. I'm just going to say, before you leave, I'm just going to take the opportunity to ask whether any panel members have questions for Mr. Berrigan at all.
I just want to clarify, what's your property address?
55A Vista Street. I'm on the southern side.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry? Same question. Same question.
That's it? No more? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
The second speaker is Mark Raimondo. I'll get the hang of this again. Second speaker is Mark Raimondo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, panel, the council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I understand that a copy of the further representations has been forwarded to the panel. So I guess Basil has gone over a few points, so kind of to reiterate a few things. But one concern which we've raised is we believe that the application may not have been notified correctly on the basis of the actual description of the letter. Makes reference to the works being on the actual number 53A Vista Street. However, it probably should have been referenced including the adjacent lot, Crown Land. So I think in relation to the process, that may be an issue. In relation to the floor space, and once again, I'd like to reiterate that our submission or concerns raised are based on public information available. So hence, whilst we can make some certain assumptions, we don't believe, or there was no, I guess, calculation in relation to floor space. There were no floor plans provided, so it's difficult to ascertain based on, I guess, the assessment report when you actually are proposing cabana, which results in additional boat shed, which results in additional floor space. I understand that there's a bit of a net decrease for a little bit for the demolition of the, I think it's like a shed or whatnot, but however, it still seems to result in a surplus in floor space to what's existing. So based on, I guess, the available information from what I could see on the council's website last review or whatnot, the last consent was for alteration additions 1994. So it's hard to ascertain if technically there have been any further improvements to the subject site in relation to calculation floor space. Whilst plans may be available from 1994, it's respectively 30 years old, so you can't really kind of rely upon them without further clarification to what the current status is in floor space. Obviously, that makes a big difference because if technically there's a breach in floor space, and as I understand, the report makes reference to existing floor space, whether it's a typo or miscalculation, any exceedance in floor space would require clause 4.6, to which hasn't been provided. The other further point, I guess, reiterating which Basil has made is more in relation to the slip rails. So as I understand it, through Basil 3's experience, it is questioned in relation to the location and the extension of the slip rails, whether they do actually have consent. So it's the area, look, and that's based on our analysis in relation to the original submission, where we looked at Metro Maps, looked at the different aerial photography over time over the years, and we just kind of pieced it together to look like there seemed to be further extensions to that slip rail. But as Basil said, he believes he wasn't advised from Crown Lands for the works next door in relation to the extension of the slip rails. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raimondo. Again, any questions from members of the panel?
Thank you.
No, I think that's a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
The third speaker to address the panel is Paul Gentile. If you could come forward, thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me time to speak on this matter. Look, my main thing I would like to discuss is I was quite surprised. I'm not experienced in doing DAs or anything, but I was quite surprised in getting up to 16 objectors for this submission. And when I requested them and went through them, they all had the same theme and wording. It seemed like someone had canvassed or orchestrated this, which seemed it was a bit distressing for us, to be honest. And ironically, a lot of it was saying that we've removed vegetation out of our rear yard, which we did. We got approval for that, and also replaced with more vegetation than we had through landscape architect. And now I hear that people are complaining I've got too much vegetation, which really I'm actually really confused now on what people are arguing that I don't have vegetation. Now I'm having possibly too much. There was misleading information submitted to council in terms of structures put up by my neighbour in terms of the heights of boat sheds and stuff. So that was, a little bit concerning as well. And, people saying we're over extending, the floor space ratio issue only came up this morning, which was quite interesting. I think we got notified late last night. I don't want to dwell on that too much, but to my understanding, we actually put a higher floor rate building size in than the original one from 1994. So in fact, I'm not an expert in that, but I would think our floor space ratio would actually be even better. So I think that's a technicality of, how, council, find the exact floor ratio, the size of the dwelling. We've been there 2 years now. We haven't made any alterations or extensions to the home. And I'll just reiterate, yes, we've agreed to reduce the size of the boat shed. We've agreed to remove a garden shed. And we also removed an existing pergola from the rear of the yard, which was in the vicinity. And that's all I've really got to say.
Thank you very much. I've got one question that I'll hold until letting others ask a question. Jenny, do you have?
The same question. Just interested, what's the proposed use of the building?
Well, now we have to store our smaller boat in there and our equipment, life jackets, kayaks, stand-up paddle boards. We enjoy recreational boating, so we have a couple of boats. We enjoy fishing. So yeah, it would be storing a small vessel, like our what we call our tin boat.
And the boat we saw today when we inspected the site, that would be going in the pen?
No, the one that was in the pen, there was a boat in the pen.
Right. That's staying in the pen?
That's right.
The boat.
Because we saw a boat there today
On the
Yeah, the
right.
blue boat's the small boat.
on the
Yes, the
yeah.
runabout. That's right.
So where will that one be located?
We're going in the boat shed.
Will go in the boat shed.
Yeah, quite easily.
But that when we looked at the size of the boat compared to what we understood to be the size of the shed, the boat shed,
Yeah.
it seems it might not fit.
Yeah, we also have a jet ski that would like to, have the option to store as well. So that is also an option. Now, I know Basil mentioned we should store them on the water. It's actually illegal, to my knowledge, to leave a jet ski on a jet ski dock. They're not approved structures. Hence, we want to, try and do the, right thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, this is a technical question, and I don't have boats, so you have to bear with me on this one. So I saw that there was a structure there at the moment, which I was told is used to help winch the boats up along the rails, but that goes as part of this development. Technically, how does it all work now?
It normally goes in the boat shed. It's
Okay.
That's a winch.
So that will be actually located in the new.
It gets removed by 4 bolts, and
Right,
it just needs
okay.
power.
Okay, and the boat that we saw, that will be pulled into the boat shed. That's part of the.
That's right. That you have a lot of options when you get a boat shed. So technically you'd be putting in that size boat. Obviously, a boat that fits in there.
Right. Okay. And just in terms of the design of the actual structure, I saw that on the northern facade, I think it is, facing the garden, you've got these bifold timber doors and sort of high clerestory glazing. Is that typical for a boat shed in terms of the design, or do you have other uses you're thinking it might be used for that would require the glazing and the bifold doors?
No, I just got advised that's an option. You can have that set up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other questions. Thanks for coming in and helping the panel with this matter. The final speaker on this DA is Craig Turner. Are you with us, Mr. Turner? Yes, you are.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the panel and assembled members of council. My name's Craig Turner. I grew up in the Blakehurst area and I'm the director of Harbour Plan. That was the applicant for the application. I commenced the marine consultancy and construction business back in 1978, and my companies have conservatively lodged over 1,000 DAs during my career. We currently manage over 120 DAs at our local office at any one time. Historically, over my 46 years of career, I have yet to experience the orchestrated neighbour complaint numbers that our clients, Mr. and Mrs. Gentile, have suffered. However, I'll try and provide some context. Luckily for Paul and his wife, the majority of objections that have been tabled, I would say, are obviously based on previous friendships with Paul's neighbour and not fact. Although in some instances those objections have been proven to be false or misleading in the extreme. The profile image as tabled on page 8 of Council's agenda is a prime example. Time doesn't permit further discussions regarding the exaggerations and baseless comment. However, we have provided Council with both amended plans and submissions with succinct answers to the relevant objectors' comments. Paul is somewhat perplexed by the level and the veracity of those objections. Further evidence to this was once I identified the direct neighbours to the south, number 55A and 57, as having, that's Vista Street, as having not one but 2 illegal berthing areas to each property, which was 4 in total. He basically said, live and let live. Further compounding facts were the additional legal berths at 63, 67, 69, 71, Vista Street, including numerous jetty extensions. Again, Paul's response at that time was it just wasn't a matter for him. The full submission process as undertaken is in keeping with the government stakeholders' guidelines and recommendations, which is to say the site was assessed both onshore, offshore, above water, below water, and that information provided the core for the specifics that were to be analysed, compiled and provided in our statements, plans and specific reports. The stakeholders' views and concurrence were sought after those lodgements and submissions. The RMS, which is the MSB, provided consent stating there were no navigation issues. Primary industries, fisheries, provided consent after specialised marine biology surveys, reports and statements were lodged. Crown Lands provided landowners consent for both the jetty, ramp, pontoons, slip rails and the berthing area. Those approvals took considerable time, resources and costs to Paul and his family, and at no time was it suggested through the process that it should be abandoned. In fact, the stakeholders were all in agreement that the Gentiles were not only providing compliance solutions, but were cleaning up what was a non-functioning waterfront with a mismatch of dilapidated marine elements. Further to that end, it was also noted by council that Paul and his family had undertaken sympathetic landscaping to their property, and on any level he has, with tree permits, improved the view lines by removing the umbrella trees and the semi-jungle that outlooked their waterfront catchment. I just like to, as I say, have provided some context, and I thank the panel's time.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you, Mr. Turner. I had one question.
Yes.
On my reading of the submissions, the concerns seem to be more about, of the submitters seem to be more about the boat shed than about the extension and other works in below the water level, I mean, high water level. What's your experience, your professional experience across your years of the utilisation of these boat sheds? I mean, how common are they in terms of how frequent do you have a boat shed in conjunction with a jetty, for example?
Sure. Boat sheds typically used to house a boat or marine equipment. It doesn't necessarily have to have a jet ski or a boat put into it, but obviously it's a storage area for kayaks, canoes, rafts, kids' equipment, and all the ancillaries that go with it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from panel members?
One from me. I had a look at the SCE, you provided that, your company.
Yes.
There's commentary on the floor space ratio. So did you have access to the original house plans to write those calculations?
No, we didn't. We were given information by the owner that was catalogued from his purchase of the home, and that information subsequently, could stand to be corrected. But council are now in receipt of marginally amended FSR figures. They were lodged this morning.
Right. Okay. So they weren't lodged by you?
Yes. Oh, well, yeah, by my town planners.
Okay, so your town planner has given an updated figure?
Correct.
Okay. And are they based on the same thing you based your
within a couple of square
calculations on?
metres, correct. I can only assume that there had been, since the original building plans, which were 69, there'd been some further DA or further amendment to the property.
Thanks, Mr. Turner. That's
Thank you.
helpful. They are the four speakers who want to address the panel about the DA at 53A Vista Street. I'll now turn to the DA regarding 117 Kyle Parade in Kyle Bay. The first speaker is Andrew Collodian. Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Can you go first? I don't mind. I'll let Rob go first. Is that okay? Is that all right if we swap orders?
You can
Sorry.
play tag team. Go for it.
Sounds good. Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much to the chairperson and also the panel for taking the time recently to go to the site and understand the site and go through what would be quite a history on the site, as you quite understand. Next, I'd like to just acknowledge the previous designer, previous architects, who happened to be my final year design studio leader, which was Frank Senedic. That was great to be able to take his platform and modernize it and move it on to a new owner and a new client, a new brief for the different requirements. Finally, I just wanted to acknowledge the work of Brendan, who's been instrumental to developing these plans to the point that where they've come to today. I think he has done a fantastic job in sort of enforcing what is going to be council's requirements and council's overall needs, and making sure that it is going to be compliant to not only sort of the older DCP but also the current DCP and LEP, and trying to maintain the amenity of the now vacant lot and trying to maintain as many view corridors and as much of the overall massing that is not there but can potentially be there of that approval that's going to be going back to the early 2000s. Overall, we'd like to just say that the current design, the current proposal is very much based on the end reason really why we're here is from the original owner or the previous owner that we were engaged by. Had a very specific use for his firm and his requirements that led to the overall massing being inside the overall approved massing that was back in the 2000s. We have since had a change of ownership and a change of direction, which is very much more, I guess, sympathetic to the neighbours, and is much more trying to keep in, because my client has been living there for a number of years and has developed different relations in comparison to the previous owner, which I think has been really quite of benefit to the scheme, and has addressed many of the issues that were prevalent in the original 2022 4.55 application, which were predominantly view sharing and trying to maintain those existing view corridors, which are obviously going to be really quite different to what's going to happen to when we actually construct a dwelling, whether it be what was approved back in the early 2000s or what was or what we're trying to propose as our first 4.55. We've addressed the view sharing issues through additional diagrams. That is going to be DA A90 through to 92, and that's addressing the issues brought forward by 115 and 119, modelling what's going to be actually approved back in 2002, and seeing that massing in comparison to what we've tried to propose to today. We've had extensive, or at least Andrew has had extensive meetings with the adjoining neighbour, as well as Brendan, in order to negotiate some type of outcome, and we've explained those diagrams and hence the reversal of the objection to a much more positive and supportive letter from the adjoining property. Elements such as privacy is also going to be something that I don't think the neighbours really quite dwell on enough in our proposal, and that's why we've actually gone above and beyond in order to allow for more privacy treatments such as screens and overall landscaping. Landscaping has been extensively explored by Johnny from Site Design Studios, which we work very closely with, and has created an exemplary outcome which addresses both neighbours on either side. But overall, the project was one that was supposed to be of a really high caliber and be a quality development. There's going to be something that Andrew can live with his family quite comfortably for as a forever home. This is not one that's going to be sitting here and just licked, which I believe was the initial intention from the previous owner. So things have drastically turned around in the past, 6 to 12 months. I think the overall outcome is going to be really quite positive, and hopefully by the end of today we can get the panels and the chairs support for the application.
Thank you. I don't have any direct or immediate questions. Did you want to say anything in addition?
I think when I purchased the property, it did come along with the DA, so the DA came with it, and along with the DA came a lot of objections. And first thing I did was knocked on the door. Didn't want to go to court because I believe in working with neighbours, so I live next to them at the end of the day. So I actually lived 2 doors down the door, so I knew the people. So I actually liaised with them, and we worked through the design, as Rob said, just to alleviate all their concerns. So literally worked with them and reduced certain things. Went from a 6th level floor plate down to a 3 level. I think Rob's addressed most of them. Worked with council, literally went backwards and forwards and amended every plan and worked tirelessly on that, and with the help of everyone. So I think as far as I'm concerned, there were no objections, or that they were withdrawn. voluntarily, by the way, didn't ask them to be withdrawn. And it's been empty for 20 years. I believe you saw the site today. You can see how
That's correct.
dilapidated it is, and it's essentially a park, and it's been a park for 20 years. So I'm excited to get something on there. Although that garage is good because I currently store some things in there, but that's good to go. But other than that, I think I agree with all the conditions and recommendations in the document. There's nothing that stands out, I guess. And like Rob said, I'm building this as for our forever home. I've got a pregnant wife and a 3-year-old, so this is a home that we will have to raise and have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from panel members? Thank you very much for coming in.
And thanks for closing the gate, whoever that was.
I think that might have been.
Thank you. I was like, I'm going to close the gate later. We just did it. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Any other questions, or is that it?
No,
Thank you.
I think we've got another speaker via Teams. Is that
No, that was just support.
No, we
just
support.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Right. Thank you to everyone who came in and addressed the panel. Thank you to fellow panel members and to council officers. That's the end of the submissions or the representations. I'll now close this part of the meeting and we'll move into closed session to make our decisions. Thanks very much.